girls. Great. All right, so I'll kick us off, everyone. My name is Rebecca Luber, and I am the Director of Career and Business Engagement with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. As you can see that we are using Zoom format today, a Zoom meeting format, rather. And the purpose of using Zoom meeting format is so that we can better engage with one another and really build community with one another and engage. So thank you for taking this journey with us and using Zoom meeting format for this sort of networking event that we're hosting today. And so we're here today for Coffee and Career Connections, business industry event. And before we get started, I have a few slides for you. And then we'll go into our panel, and then we'll go into breakout Q&A from the audience, and then breakout rooms, and then come back for about 2 minutes with some wrap-up information. And so we always like to start off by thanking our donors and members of the Alumni Association for powering our alumni webinar series. If you'd like more information about that, you may go to umnalumni.org/virtual membership rather. I can also send out this link as well. We also like to thank our Maroon and Gold Network and our Minnesota Alumni Market for presenting this webinar today. Our Maroon and Gold Network is a free online platform from the University of Minnesota Alumni Association for career-related advice, networking, and mentorship. If you're not a part of that network, we invite you to join at maroonandgoldnetwork.umnalumni.org. And our Minnesota Alumni Market is a first of its kind online store dedicated to supporting U of M alumni businesses and their products. So you can learn more about that at mnalumni.com. All right. And if you'd like to learn about some other upcoming virtual events or webinars rather, we have Becoming an Entrepreneur on November 19th, Navigating Your Identity LGBTQ in the Workplace on December 10th. And that information can be found on our website as well. And to make the most of your experience today, we do ask that you kindly hit the mute button at the bottom of your panel of your screen. As you can see here, there's a screenshot of how to unmute yourself, how to start your video, and so forth. And then the chat feature can be located through the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen as well. And then if you have any questions at any time, you may enter them into the chat function, and we'll be using that as well for our Q&A portion today. All right. And then once we get closer to switching rooms or into our breakout sessions rather, I'm kindly asking that everyone rename themselves by the room of choice. So we have 3 rooms: new professional, career advancement, and career switching. So I will ask that each person take the time to rename themselves by one of those rooms: new professional, career advancement, or career switching, so that we can better move folks easily into the rooms of their choice. And to do that, you just need to click the 3 dots, hover by the top of your box or your video rather, and then rename yourself. And you can do that anytime you like. Or you could go to the participant area and rename yourself from there. All right, so without further ado, I'll begin with introductions. I'd like to begin by introducing our moderator, Mark Swanson-Wagner. In his role of director of the Carlson School of Management Undergraduate Business Career Center, Mark Swanson-Wagner champions students' work to navigate career and work paths unique to their own skills and values. During his 20 years at the University of Minnesota, Mark has built partnerships on campus and with industry partners to leverage the talents of the university's students and the vibrancy of the Twin Cities business community. Thank you and welcome, Mark. All right. Next, I would like to introduce Kristine Boedigheimer. Kristine is the Senior Director of Capital Finance at Target Corporation. Kristine obtained a bachelor's degree in accounting and an MBA from the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management. Kristine began her career with Arthur Andersen and Deloitte and is a CPA. Kristine joined Target Corporation in 2002 and has held numerous roles across financial planning and analysis and Treasury. Kristine serves on the Alumni Board of the Carlson School of Management and the Board of Advisors of the Ripley Memorial Foundation, which is a donor-advised fund of the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Kristine enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 daughters, traveling in all forms of skiing. Thank you and welcome, Kristine. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Carrie Johnson. Carrie Johnson is a human resources leader and consultant, successful at using curiosity, executional change excellence, and positive people strategies to change behavior and achieve business outcomes. Following her Bachelor of Science in Business degree from Carlson, she held leadership and sales roles in small organizations. Career exploration led her back to the University of Minnesota's Master in Human Resources and Industrial Relations program. That pivot led to a career at American Express, working in Minneapolis and New York City as an HR business partner and VP of Global Organization Effectiveness. Since American Express, Carrie has enjoyed both internal and external consulting roles. Carrie is a current Carlson School of Management Alumni Board member, former board member of the Human Resources and Labor Studies Alumni Board, and co-chair of the HR Tomorrow Conference. She is the founder of Career Walk at Bethlehem, a job transition program now in its 10th year. Thank you and welcome, Carrie. And next we have Denise. Denise Reyes graduated from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities in December 2018. She majored in business and marketing education and was the first woman in her family to earn a bachelor's degree. Currently, she is an international credit analyst at Land O'Lakes Incorporated in Arden Hills, Minnesota. Thank you and welcome, Denise. And I will turn it over to Mark for our panel.
Thanks, Rebecca. Of course, I started the day by having to quadruple click on my mute button. So just one of those Zoom days. Thanks everybody for joining us today, especially our panelists for your wisdom today. I'm excited to spend some time and learn from you today. I just have a handful of very broad questions. I want to make sure that we glean as much as we can from our panelists in the next 20 to 25 minutes before we transition over to Q&A and then ultimately into the small groups. So I'm going to just go through them. We have 4 questions. We'll go through them one by one, and hopefully each of the 3 panelists, Denise, Carrie, and Kristine, are willing to answer each of those. So let me just start. Could each of you please share an overview of your career trajectory and maybe provide a couple of points of wisdom you would share with someone entering a field similar to yours? Maybe we'll start with Denise. How does that sound?
Okay, I didn't want to talk over anyone, so I was like, let me wait till somebody else unmutes first. Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. So my career trajectory is really interesting because people always ask me kind of how did I end up where I ended up now, which is at Land O'Lakes as the international credit analyst. When I was in high school, my senior year of high school, I took I had a year-long internship at Medtronic. I was in their global IT team, so I did that for a year. Then I came back a year later and I did another IT summer internship. Then a year after that, I interned at Best Buy as a marketing technology operations intern. After that, I was like, I have one more summer before I graduate undergrad. What do I want to do? And I was like, let me go to Land O'Lakes and do finance, because I studied business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do still. So I was like, I'm an undergrad. I can take advantage of the fact that I don't have to tie myself down to anything yet. So I took that opportunity at Land O'Lakes and I loved it. And it just so happened that there was a vacancy while I was there as an intern. So they offered me the full-time position and I took it. And so I went back to school and finished school, and then I was back. So I jumped around from IT to marketing to finance. And I always tell people, you might do different experiences that don't exactly connect, right? So IT and then marketing and then finance, they're kind of different. And I just tell people, you can always get something good out of everything you do. So for example, right now at Land O'Lakes, I may not build marketing campaigns like I did at Best Buy, but I do use the analytical skills, the attention to detail that I learned while I was there. So that's my biggest advice to everyone. Just take risks, take opportunity, and you can always take something good and put it onto your next role or your next move, wherever that may be.
Carrie, would you be willing to jump in? Carrie, can you jump in?
I'm trying. Hi, everybody. I would say a lot of the same things as Denise, which is I guess maybe something you'd expect and maybe something you wouldn't expect because our careers are taking it to different places. But I would say that everything that I've done in my career is something that I've been interested in and I felt like I could learn from. And it may seem odd because Denise changed between IT and marketing and finance. And I went from retail store management to industrial sales, back to HR. And I know where the commonalities are between them because I did a lot of career assessment work. So I would say, just like Denise, like pay attention, try things out, be open. There's a saying to say, always say yes when you're doing a career exploration, like, oh, what can I learn from that? It's a volunteer opportunity. It's a leadership role. It's it's a meeting with my neighbors, whatever it is. And the other thing I would say, if you're thinking about, because I always think about in the mind of someone who is thinking about what they want to do next, is always just pay attention to what you like and don't like, pay attention to what gives you energy and what doesn't give you energy, and find those wherever you are. I'm not a person who thinks there's a one linear path for everybody. Some people do go that way, but not everybody. So stay open and follow your own path.
Go for it, Kristine.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My career trajectory was definitely not what I had planned. From the time I was about a fourth grader, wanted to become a partner at a public accounting firm. That was what I was going to do. I majored in accounting. I got to the public accounting firm and I decided this is not actually what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was kind of scary at the time, but what I really always tried to do was connect to as many people in my field as I possibly could. When I was an undergrad, I worked at a hotel that catered to business travelers, and I literally would talk to every single person that came in the door and just learn about what they did and what they loved about it. And, not necessarily what you might think of as a great networking opportunity, but I definitely used it for that and to kind of, form my knowledge base on the field. And so probably my biggest piece of advice is to use those opportunities, like Carrie mentioned, whether it's talking to a neighbor or talking to someone at your job that you have now, just learn as much about, the field as you possibly can. And so to go back to my own career trajectory, every job I've ever had, whether it's inside of Target or outside of Target, has been because of someone I know. And so I made the decision I did not want to stay in public accounting after I'd been there about 4 years, and had a friend that worked at Target and didn't think I was going to stay at Target for as long as I have, but I came in with an open mind and have ended up staying, and I continue to talk to people about what's next for me inside of Target or potentially outside of Target. So I think my biggest piece of advice in closing is just talk to people and learn and have an open mind, and don't be afraid of a pivot, even if you might not be expecting one.
Thank you for all the feedback. So Carrie, we'll have you start this, and then we'll transition into Kristine and then Denise. And this is probably a good transition from a lot of your wisdom. Whether it's a new professional or someone who's looking for a career shift, many people can get pretty overwhelmed by all the different career options that fall under the quote unquote business as an industry. Are there strategies you would recommend for someone trying to find areas that might be a good fit for them, or as they're kind of reimagining what work looks like in their lives?
I would say start with what your life goals are. So depending on where you are, you're looking for, let's just say that you've always wanted to live in Denver and you live in Minneapolis. Well, if you're thinking about doing something different, maybe you need to put Denver into the mix. I'd love to work there. You can explore and pay attention. And so some of that is self-assessment. I will say that I took a formal career class when I was doing my career transition about a year, before I decided to do the master's at the University of Minnesota. So I put real time into it. There was a self-reflection, like, what do you like about work? What do you like about what you've done in play, volunteering, etc., to actually write things down and think about, would you rather be with a group of people or would you rather be by yourself? Do you want to travel? Kristine talked about being in public accounting. You better like to travel if you want to be in public accounting for that kind of a firm. So pay attention, know what you like, know what you don't like, and try things on. There is a resource that might be interesting. It's called Designing Your Life. It's by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're from Stanford, and it might be kind of an unusual thing for you to think about. They're not career people, they're actually design people. And one of their approaches is that you do prototyping, and you flesh out, you pick 3. If you can't decide, pick 3 and flesh out all 3 options to see what each one looks like, and then pick one and go for it. And if you feel overwhelmed, just take a first step, try something. As both Denise and Kristine have said, if you try something, you don't like it, you can always do something else. There's so many opportunities in the world. But so I would say reflect, decide, and try a path.
All right. I love that, Carrie. Very similarly, I would say don't stress about permanence, because no decision you make today is permanent. Many companies, Target included, allow you to make pivots when you come into an organization. And if you start off in finance, guess what? You're building a skill that is valuable across the company. If you start off in marketing, you're building a skill that is valuable across the company. And if you come in and you decide, I really want to go work in supply chain, or I really want to work in marketing, chances are you're going to be able to make those connections to do that pivot once you get into an organization. So don't stress. I know it's really hard. I have the same conversation with my teenage daughters all the time. It is really hard to make a decision that feels like it's going to write the story for the rest of your life. But try to not think of it as permanent. Think of it as, I'm going to build a skill and I can move on from there. As an example, our chief operating officer at Target started in finance, and now he leads stores and all things operational. And we have multiple examples of that. And I'm guessing if you looked at the leadership team of many companies in the Twin Cities, you would find that their leaders are not necessarily doing what they started in, and that actually getting that variety of experience is extremely valuable. So just be open-minded, don't stress. You're making a great step by being here today and learning from other people and networking. So that's another great step to do.
All right, as Carrie and Kristine were talking, I was like, what am I gonna say? Because they're taking all my points. But yeah, honestly, everything they said, and I also do think we have to leave that mindset of this decision is gonna decide the rest of my life. So it's not true. And even in undergrad, I felt like choosing a major, I was like, I'm gonna choose a major and I'm gonna be stuck with whatever I choose for the rest of my life, and it's gonna decide my life, and it doesn't. You know, it really doesn't. And even your first job, second job, 10th job, after school, you will keep evolving, you'll keep learning yourself and what do you like and what do you not like. So I think it's definitely good to take opportunities like this, listen to other people in different career paths, also do informational interviews with people. I really like to talk to people that graduated from the U, and even though they majored in different things, I would say, so how did you end up where you ended up? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you think your next move is? Because it's always just good to learn from other people, because you might learn things that you didn't know, or next steps, or different careers you've never even heard of, right? Jobs you didn't even know existed. I also definitely do recommend to do those career assessments. And sometimes they can be long, or personality assessments to learn more about what you do really like. And as I mentioned before, I jumped around a lot through different companies when I was an intern. And always when I went to a different company, I took time to learn the company, learn the culture, learn the company values, because it's super important to work for a company where their values align with yours and where you're motivated to show up to work every day and to give your best and know that your role in that company is helping accomplish the goal overall. So for Land O'Lakes, our goal overall is feeding human progress. So that's a crazy goal because it's true, we're literally feeding humans, right? Even though I'm not feeding humans in my financial role, I'm like, no, that's different. But no, overall, it aligns to the overall goal. So definitely just be open-minded and be kind to yourself, because I know sometimes we stress ourselves out more than anybody else. Like, what's my next move? What am I gonna do? But take it one day at a time. And like we've been saying, nothing is going to decide your life forever. So just remember that, and take like short opportunities such as internships or temporary roles at companies, or even volunteer experiences. Maybe it's just one day volunteering, 1 hour volunteering, and you could meet somebody, you could learn something that's going to impact your next move in your career. So that's what I would definitely advise.
Awesome, thank you. So each of you mentioned either connecting with people or the term networking. So this next question is a little bit more tactical, I guess. Are there specific professional development opportunities or other avenues for connecting with your peers that you would recommend to someone who's new to your industry? And how about we go with Kristine, Denise, and then Carrie?
Sure. For my industry specifically, there are so many opportunities. And the great thing about the environment we're in right now is that so many things are virtual. And so the cost is oftentimes either greatly reduced and many times it's free. So definitely upside that comes with the kind of quarantine environment we're in now. My best advice is to just look at the resources in the Twin Cities, look at Twin Cities business, read through it. They have on their website upcoming events. Find one that's interesting to you. If you're a woman and you're interested in retail or consumer products, there's a great network called the Network of Executive Women. There's Women Venture, and you guys are, using the University of Minnesota Carlson schools, many opportunities too, many of which are also lower cost or free in this environment. And then I will add on to that, don't just attend, make a point after whatever the event is to connect with at least one person. I love it when I do panels and someone stays afterward to personally connect with me and ask to have a follow-up meeting. Know that that is not an inconvenience. It is absolutely something that I love doing. So just make an attempt to connect with, again, at least one person and go to whatever events are interesting to you. And you can always drop off. Also in this virtual environment, you can drop off if you find it's not something that you're interested in once you get a little ways in.
Again, everything she said, because that's really true. And another thing too is right now in this quarantine environment, of course, it's harder to physically meet face-to-face with people, but I think LinkedIn is an amazing resource that a lot of people don't take advantage of enough. People will post events, either networking events or just like a meet and greet for a different industry. I've seen people that have been working on, like, for example, I have a friend that was working on making an app. And so they needed to present to people, and they said, hey, I'm going to have this event and I'm going to present, and I would love for people to join so I could present this to you. So people joined to support this person, but also other people were like, I want to learn how to do that, or how did you do that? And these opportunities that you see on LinkedIn, sometimes you just scroll and you don't realize all the goodness that's there. And people have already connected with me through LinkedIn that are attending this event right now. So I think that's great. Always make those connections, because you never know when you're looking for jobs in LinkedIn. You might see a company and then you see, oh, you have 2 connections. And it's like, who are these people? And you're like, oh yeah, I met them at this event, or I connected with them after this event. So I think definitely LinkedIn and social media is a great way to look for career advancements, and always keep an eye out. People will post when their companies have a job opening. They'll be like, hey, there's this opening. Is anybody interested? Do you know anybody? And people might recommend you, or maybe you'll recommend others. And it's crazy because you think, oh, social media might just be like for fun and games, but no, you can really find your next job there without even looking, honestly.
I would say if you're specifically looking within human resources, the place to look is SHRM, SHRM, Society of Human Resources Management. They've got local chapters, but there are also subgroups. Like if you're interested in being a recruiter, there are professional recruiting groups. If you're interested in the systems side of HR, there's systems type networking groups in the Twin Cities. And if you're thinking about, I've got my hat on of career switching, as you're networking, which networking is kind of a weird term. Lots of people has lots of baggage, but to me, it's just talking to people and being curious. I got my internship at American Express I was at a meeting and I was new and someone else was new and we were chatting, and it turns out that she worked at American Express, and that's literally how I ended up. There's a lot of steps in between, but got the opportunity to do an internship there. Yeah, participate, ask people. I've had also some people send LinkedIn invitations. I would ask that if you do that, to put a note in. I usually don't accept just blind links, but put a note in about it. Yeah, I think those are good ways. The other thing is, I think you all know this, but there's Indeed shows different job postings, and if you are like wide open, I could do anything in the world, go in and just read job postings and see what's interesting to you and what's not interesting to you. It's kind of an unusual pastime. You probably wouldn't want to put on Facebook or Twitter, but it can be really rich and rewarding.
Any pastime during COVID is a good pastime, right? Thank you for that. So our last question kind of pulls it back out more broad again. So many people who are new to business as an industry see how broad it really is, or even those who are kind of career shifting are trying to reimagine how they think about the whole industry. Are there any specific trends that you think would be helpful for people to understand the larger landscape that is the business sector that would be helpful? And let's go Denise, Carrie, and Kristine for this one.
I think definitely the number one thing to understand is that business is always going to be changing. There's always going to be new jobs. There's always going to be new opportunities. I think that right now, everybody has been throwing, at least at my company, everyone's throwing around the term, the new normal, which I think a lot of us are like, this isn't normal. We're stuck in our houses. People are getting sick. This is not normal, but we are learning to adjust. Businesses are learning to adjust. Businesses, huge offices are all vacant because everybody's at home. Everybody is trying to stay safe, but doing their job at home. And so with transitioning to working from home, there's new jobs being made, the created jobs that we didn't know that we needed, and jobs that we're going to need them moving forward, because a lot of people aren't even going to go back to the office. They're going to stay working from home. They're going to stay virtual, because companies are realizing how much work can be done outside of the actual corporate office. So I think that's a really important thing to understand, is that the business industry is always changing, it's always evolving, and we have to keep evolving with it. We have to keep learning. I think it's important not to stay complacent, like, oh, I finished school, or I finished this, I finished the training, I'm done. I don't need to learn, because no, we learn every single day, and that's what highlight us among other candidates when we look for different opportunities, different jobs, or when we're selected to do events like this, to be a panelist or to mentor somebody, and so on and so forth. I think as the business industry evolves, we need to keep evolving with it and stay on top of networking. I think there's no such thing as too much networking. And I definitely think that once we start to evolve in our career, I think it's definitely important to connect with other people that maybe are in the shoes that you were in last year or last month, because nothing feels better than connecting with somebody that you think really understands you. Maybe connecting with someone that knows what it feels like to be fresh out of school and can't find a job, or all of a sudden they don't have a job. What do they do next? I think when you have the time, or make the time to connect with people and be a mentor, even if it's not long term, just temporarily, it makes a huge difference in people's life, and it's super important. So that's my greatest advice regarding that question.
Sorry, I'm falling down on the job here. So if you're thinking about what business is, so if you're leverage local resources, so within Carlson School, if you haven't attended First Tuesday meetings, usually it's a CEO of a company there recently. It was Andy Cesari from US Bank, blanking on his name, but from Sun Country came and talked. And so you can hear from the point of view of the top leadership about what's happening. And the beautiful thing about this COVID time is that they're, Jude Bricker, thank you, Allison, which was really interesting to me, really interesting to hear what he said and what he was doing with the business temporarily and where he's envisioning to go. So, and some of the people who are speakers will give their emails if you have further follow-up, but it's a good way just to sit back and learn and absorb what's going on. And I would echo what Denise said, is try things out. There's, your basics, the Wall Street Journal, the business section of the paper. If you're downtown, if you're in Minneapolis, some of the local publications talk about what's going on. I don't know, for business, there's so many things. It's almost like you can't avoid. It'd be hard to not interact with something about business every day.
All right, I can go next. And my fellow panelists did an awesome job covering the broad themes and trends, I would say. I'll highlight a couple that I see really as kind of up and coming, and in some cases more mature, depending on what company you're at. But the first one I'll call out is just big data and the use of analytics around that data. So just the evolution of computing power, even in the last 20 years, has been tremendous. And the ability of companies to take data and turn it into actionable insights is something that we are really just scratching the surface of. We have tons and tons and tons of data. And what we need are more people that are able to take that data and turn it into a story or turn it into something actionable. And I will say a lot of organizations maybe even have some of those people, but they're just in their infancy and figuring out how do we actually integrate that into our business decision-making processes. So that's something that I think is going to continue to be a really hot topic for the next several years. And if you can figure out how to take big, quantities of data, and you can figure out how this is important to your customer and how it's important to your business and the decisions you're making, you're going to be extremely valuable to an organization. Second trend I see, particularly in the Twin Cities, is just our efforts around making workplaces more diverse and more inclusive. This is probably no surprise to anyone on this call that the Twin Cities has had our share of difficulties in this space, particularly post the murder and death of George Floyd. But I will tell you that where that is certainly a hot topic in the Twin Cities, it is equally a challenge for businesses in the Twin Cities, as we are trying to, all of us, make our employees representative of the environments and the cultures in which we do business. And that has not been something we've been particularly successful at over time, but it is something we are all working really, really hard to improve upon. And so I would say that transcends every layer of most organizations right now. Is how do we make our environments more diverse? How do we make them more inclusive? How do we make sure that anybody that comes into this environment can be successful? So those are the two trends that I would call out. So if that is something you are passionate about, I think you're going to add a lot to an organization, because we're all trying to figure it out right now.
Thank you. I know it's time to transition back to Rebecca, but I just wanted to quickly do the first of what I hope is many thank yous to Denise, Carrie, and Kristine for your wisdom today. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mark, so much for your moderation. And thank you to all our panelists. Now it's time for us to move into our Q&A portion. So if you have any questions for our panelists that we could maybe answer more broadly, feel free to drop your questions into the chat function at the bottom of your screen with the three dots under more. So let's drop your questions in there. And then after we get through one or two questions, we'll move into our breakout rooms. And I see many of you have renamed yourself, and I started moving folks into breakout rooms. So thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't taken the time to rename yourself, now would be a great time to do that before we launch our breakout rooms. And if you're having any issue renaming yourself, just message me directly and let me know what room you'd like to be placed in, and I can make that happen. All right, so waiting here for any questions that we might have. If not, we'll move speedily into our next portion.
There was a question, Rebecca, about networking and talking. If we're trying to change the workforce, we're trying to change things in the Twin Cities, but if I'm only talking to people I know, I'm probably not, I'm not breaking those barriers. And I would say that one way to do it is do things that are outside of your comfort zone. So if there's a virtual meeting, you know, look for something. Politics, for example. I'm not going to go into any comments about politics, but politics it's a way that a very diverse group of people come together. Same with neighborhood boards, neighborhood issues. There's tons of work being done in Minneapolis. I know that you're virtual. You could be any place in the world actually for this, but my guess is it's similar in other cities. But there's a Lake Street fund for rebuilding Lake Street, and my guess is that they need volunteers to do something. You know, actively think outside your comfort zone to meet people who are different from you. But I actually think that doing that actually touches on what Kristine was saying. Is it's the only way to change how we build our institutions and our companies is to know people differently through different connections.
Thank you. Looks like there's a question here about someone missing education in one area, skills in another area, but both are a passion of theirs. And so what are your suggestions in terms of where they should focus their time and energy?
So I can touch on this one. I think, again, if you're passionate about something, you don't necessarily have the skills to do a specific job, push yourself to get that experience in some other way. For me, I was passionate about real estate at one point, and it was not in any way, shape, or form ready to go work in real estate, but I was great at finance. And so I found a role supporting the real estate team while still doing finance. And I will say that is a common way that people do make those transitions into other areas. They might be passionate about marketing, but they're currently in, let's say, accounting or finance. You might go work at a marketing firm in that finance or accounting function. It gives you a way to get at least some exposure to that field and potentially eventually transition over there. So try to find a hybrid or a way that you can get some exposure or experience while leveraging the skills that you already do have.
Great, thank you. And so it looks like we're going to move into breakout rooms just so that we have enough time for our individual questions that you might have or questions around certain themes. And so our breakout rooms are once again, new professional with Denise Reyes, a career advancement with Kristine, and career switching with Carrie. All right, and it looks like many of you have renamed yourself. I'm just gonna go through the list right now, see if there's anyone else who needs to be moved into rooms. And then I'm going to make the switch. So I'm doing both because I've learned that that not the host has all control and not the co-host. So I am doing both. So I apologize. All right, so looks like I've moved some folks around, and let me make sure I have everyone in career switching. All right, looks like I have one more person for career advancements, and then we'll go from there. And if you're tuning in by phone, if you can send me a message somehow I can move you into a room, or I'll just select a room and hope that it's the right room for you. And we'll go from here. All right, so I'm going to open all the rooms up right now. We have about 10, 15 minutes, about 15 minutes or so. So let me put down a timer for us for 12 minutes. Put a 30-second countdown. And here we go. And we'll come back here with about 2 minutes left with some wrap-up information. It looks like there's a few people left.